A call for a ceasefire has been made as tensions between Israel and Iran escalated in the past 4 days. Israel first launched its attack on Iran on Friday last week, with Iran retaliating, resulting in the loss of lives on both sides. Now, last night, an Israeli strike hit Iran's state broadcaster, interrupting the station's network. This happens as the G7 summit is being held in Canada, with world leaders, including President Cyril Ramaphosa, in attendance. But in a statement released this morning, G7 leaders reiterated their commitment to peace and stability in the Middle East. They said Iran is the principal source of regional instability and terror, and Israel has a right to defend itself. They have been consistently clear that Iran can never have nuclear weapons. For more on the conflict between Israel and Iran, we are joined by Patrick Kadima. He's a lecturer at Wits University. Patrick, great to have you. Thanks very, very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, and good morning, good morning to your viewers.
So I think one of the big developments certainly is that, firstly, President Trump has left the G7 meeting, the summit. He's going back to Washington over this Israel and Iran crisis. Notably, the big thing, he's refused to sign the G7's de-escalation statement demanding restraint. What do you think that this message sends out with the US's stance and this particular situation we find ourselves in the Middle East?
So clearly, I think that this again proves that, the multilateral system has come to a standstill. It's been stretched day by day, and that, with the Trump administration, representing America, it has become more difficult to find a solution to the issue. I mean, you could see even through his posts, how he was referencing that Macron does not know anything, and he has left the G7 meeting for bigger things, and so on and so forth. So it brings forth a challenge that if these more influential countries, these 7 influential countries, are meeting and cannot even take out a proper declaration that has consensus, then it's problematic.
Yeah, which it is problematic. It certainly is, because, this is a massive situation. And again, I focus on Trump because he put out on his Truth social media platform saying that everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran amid these Israeli strikes hitting the nuclear and civilian targets. And now we've got death tolls at over 224. He said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And this is what he's emphasizing, that people should expect the worst. This pretty much so puts the US's stance on the table, doesn't it? What are we expecting next from them?
Yeah, it does, and it's unfortunate that such a global influential player, he is resorting to such statements. Such countries need to be able to bring, warring parties together and bring warring parties together and, try to find a solution to the issue, but it's unfortunate that he has resorted to being radical and so on and so forth, and I would have expected that America would be standing up and be, bringing about solutions to the issue. But if that is not happening, then I don't think that we will ever get to a peace deal.
Yeah, this is a very, very big problem, because it just doesn't seem that the peace deal or ceasefire is something that is going to be worked out very easily. And at the center of this all, and let's get your views on this, is Iran's nuclear program, with leaders saying that they cannot and should not have nuclear weapons. Who are they to decide who gets to have nuclear weapons and who doesn't?
That's very true. But, it all boils down to the issue of sovereignty. But again, sovereignty works within the ambit of international law, right? That's why we have institutions or global organizations such as the IAEA, that are there to, to put in measures, and treaties, and work around the treaties that have been there to ensure that countries, if they have nuclear weapons and so on and so forth, or are using nuclear energy, are working within a certain framework, So no country has the responsibility to tell another country, but at the end of the day, when you're in a multilateral system, there are measures that are put in place that one needs to follow to ensure that we live in a society that is free from nuclear weapons. We have seen what nuclear weapons can do, and the destruction they can do to society, as we've seen years back.
That organization you speak of, is Israel a signatory to it?
I don't think Israel is a signatory to it, but despite it not being a signatory to it, as long as you're part of the United Nations, at the end of the day, there is a responsibility for you to be able to follow the resolutions passed by the United Nations as an agency, and so on and so forth, as a multilateral agency, and you need to respect those resolutions. You need to respect those measures that are put in place.
So we look at now the remaining members of the G7 who are there and trying to work out what other means they have. What do they? I mean, can the remaining G7 deploy without leadership from the US there?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. If one party does not, and this is the difficulties that come with such alliances, such blocks, where you have a G7 that you need to pass or a G20, you need to pass, if you want to pass a proper declaration, you need to have everyone agreeing to it, everyone signing to it. Same as BRICS, you need to have everyone, consensus needs to be there, and those are the difficulties. So you cannot try to work as a G7, try to work as a G6, and try to find a solution to that. I think it will be very difficult, because the United States of America is say that it's an ally of Israel, and it becomes difficult if they are absent from this meeting, and it gives it waters down the power that the G6 has. We've seen some members of the G6 release statements with other member states, France and Canada releasing statements previously, but those don't materialize on the ground, because then the United States of America is not present. It has its own view and wants to work on its own roadmap to peace.
Yeah, indeed there is. Now, obviously, we know that South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is there, obviously as in capacity of the head of the G20. What role is he going to play? Obviously, there's always, room for more minds, more voices. But in terms of his role, what do you think is going to come of this?
Yeah, I mean, he has been invited by the Canadian Prime Minister. Canada and South Africa share a very good relationship. Their bilateral relations are very strong, and this is an opportunity for him to meet with other head leaders, other heads of states and of government, and try to convince them about South Africa's agenda, in leading the G20 in November this year. We have seen him held already several bilateral meetings with several leaders from the Republic of Korea and so on and so forth. So it is an opportunity for him, as the president of the country and as the leader of the G20, to try and get several member states, or several members of the G7, including those that are invited in the outreach program, to support South Africa's G20 presidency and the agenda that South Africa will that South Africa is putting forth. And I think this is a great thing that he has done, and I think it will benefit South Africa's presidency. As to whether it will produce a unified statement later on this year, I don't know. We'll have to wait to see, because the geopolitical situation currently has become very complex, and countries now are starting to look at their own interests.
Yeah, certainly. And just very quickly before I let you go, obviously one of the big repercussions is the fact of we're looking at the oil price, we're looking at where it's going, and this is going to have an impact. And I don't know where I was listening, but somebody said, watch that mark, $76 a barrel. And that's where things can get a little bit hair-raising. Are you in agreement? I mean, this obviously can turn into a much bigger scenario than it is right now.
Yes, I mean, if it's a full-blown out regional conflict, it's going to have repercussions not only for the Middle East, surely for everyone in this world that we are living in, and it's going to be very difficult to come back from it. And it's very important that those countries that are very influential try to reach a peace deal, because if not, it's not only oil prices; it's a humanitarian disaster waiting to happen. And once it blows out of proportion, the world is going to take long to return back to normality, normalcy. So it is very important that parties call for de-escalation. Unfortunately, I don't know who can tell the Trump administration that peace needs to be found. And it's not about standing with an ally, but trying to think about the women and the children that are going to suffer from this devastating conflict that is going to happen.
All right, Patrick Kadima, thank you. Thanks for talking to us. A very sensitive situation that is unfolding in the Middle East, and it changes from moment to moment. So we'll keep watching that, keep reporting on it, and bringing you some analysis. That was lecturer at Wits University.